Hey everybody, welcome back. And I'm going to be honest here at the start of the video today. Usually I come out here, I'm super cheerful, I'm really happy. This has been a rough week for me. I'm cutting weight, work has been stressful, just a lot of things going on. So I've been in a pretty bad mood this week in general. And sometimes, playing Pokemon, it's not about winning or losing. It's, you just want to play some games and piss some people off. And today we're going to be doing that with a deck from 2006, which is going to be Dustox EX. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on. You play Dustox EX, you just have people that don't like you a whole lot and they get mad. So I've had some fun games with this week. But, this has just been the type of week I've been having. So let's just jump right on into the deck here. So starting off here, we'll go ahead and just cover the basic strategy. Basically, Dustox is prevent all effects of attack, including damage to Dustox by your opponent's Pokemon EX. What makes Dustox better than, say, a Ninetales or a Wobbuffet is that it actually can do some damage. Silver Wind hits for 40. Next turn, your attacks will do 30 more damage. Cutting Wind hits for 70. It's got 140 hit points. And any sort of heavy EX type of deck is going to have a really, really hard time taking down multiple Dustox EXs. And usually they'll play some sort of soft counter to get past, like I said, kind of a light counter to the deck, like a Ninetales, or they'll play something to get around a Wobbuffet, but they really, really struggle taking down multiple Dustox EXs. The problem in 2006 in particular is that Dustox EX is going to auto-win you like 30% of the games, or 40% of the games. And it's usually useful in quite a few matchups, but those like you show up, they see a Dustox EX, and they just scoop up their cards, is only going to be about 30 to 40% of the game, of your game. So you need to be able to do something in the rest of those games. And what are you going to combo it with? What's your strategy going to be? And this is where I decided to go with a Plusle Minimum engine in the deck, because it gave me a way to deal with other decks in the format, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but it also allowed me to soften up bigger threats for Dustox EX, so I wouldn't have to risk my Dustox EX. And remember, when you're playing Pokemon, your opponent can take 5 prizes, they're just not allowed to take 6. So with some careful prize management, weaving the Plusle and Minims into your prize exchanges has almost no bearing on the game at all. So starting off here, we do play 3 Plusles for a couple of reasons. The Call for Family is incredibly good, and second of all, Positive Spark. It does 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon that have any Poke Powers. And this is going to be very common in the format. One of the biggest threats for the deck is going to be something like Meta Knight, for example. And, you'll be sniping things like Pidgeot. But one of the best counters to Dustox EX that you're going to find is a lot of decks are going to try to go aggressive with Jirachi, because Jirachi is grass resistant, and it'll hit Dustox for 50. Plusle, on the other hand, in combination with the Cursed Stone we play, is just going to be able to completely bypass those Jirachis. It's not going to be, if our opponent goes that route, Plusle's going to be able to deal with it, and Jirachi's not going to be much of a threat. Minim, on the other hand, does the exact opposite. It does 20 damage to each of our opponent's Pokemon that have any bodies. This can be very good in matchups like, we'll say, Rocklock, for example. LBS, it can be good. Plusle is very good in LBS too, but Minim can be good in LBS as well. I played against a Mewtrick deck earlier tonight. Minim does a lot of work in that matchup, softening up Mews, things like that. But the big thing is that you're able to use Sniff Out, which is search your deck for any, search your discard pile for any card and put it into your hand. And the reason for this is we play, along with the Dustox, we play a large stadium count. We play 4 Cursed Stone. We play a Battle Frontier. Sniff Out is just going to let us be able to constantly put those back in our hand. We're always going to win a Stadium War with Minim in the deck. And the other thing is we also play POW. And I didn't go heavy POW. We're not trying to purposely fall behind on prizes or anything you'll see with other decks. I just found POW to be very useful in that POW Sniff Out Rockets Admin combo is just incredibly strong as well, especially in matchups like, LBS, for example. We can POW something up, Rockets admin them to a very low hand size, and they're going to really struggle to get out of that, especially with like a Cursed Stone or a Battle Frontier in play. It's also just very useful in other decks. I've had a lot of opponents that'll try to use like Houndoom, for example, to one-shot Dustox. POW lets us just bring that up. We can knock it out before they get any hit us with anything, stuff like that. So POW is just a great utility card. I can see an argument for playing more than 2 in the deck. It's just that room is going to be very, very, very tight in this list. So next up, I play a 3-2-3 Dustox line. And you're going to say, why the thin line? Might not go like a 4-3-4, something like that. But the main thing is the matchups that Dustox is really, 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 really strong in. We just usually need to get 2 out, and we play that thicker line. On top of that, and this combos with the plus low minimum combo very well, is going to be Pokemon Retriever. We do play 2 Retrievers, so those games, if we did need that 4th Dustox EX or something like that, we are going to be able to get it out. 1 Lunatone, 1 Solrock. We want to be able to constantly soften up our opponent's Pokemon with Cursed Stone, but at the same time, we cannot allow them to have that. We can't allow them to have Quick Search. So we've got to play the Lunatone Solrock combo so we can shut off the Pidgeot, shut off the Porygon 2, but still have Cursed Stone in play to start really damaging the opponent and their Pokemon. Like I said, Dustox is super strong. It's great in EX heavy decks, but we've got to be able to soften up Pokemon. We've got to be able to have alternate ways of taking prizes other than just going aggressive with Dustox EX, because hitting for 70 a turn in 2006 is not going to be enough to win us games on its own. We've got to have some little tricks up our sleeves to get us there. 1 Holen's Voltorb, searchable. We run so many basics in the deck, 5, 8, 10 other basics in the deck. We feel relatively good about not starting with a lone Voltorb. And then 1 Holen's Electrode, it's just searchable off the Elms. I've had a lot of synergy with that Elms, so that Elms can do more than just grab our Dustox line. I've really been liking the Holen's Voltorb, Holen's Electrode. It's been testing really well for me. Next up, I do stick with the Holen line. I think you can make some arguments for or against this here, but there's just so much synergy, and we're going to have, in certain matchups, we're not going to need Plusle, for example. That's easy to toss. You're not going to need the Lunatone Solrock in every matchup. So some of this being able to get rid of dead cards in our hand is also going to be very strong. But essentially, I play the 4 Transceiver. I only play 1 copy of Mentor. This is not something I advise or I like doing in a lot of decks, but since we are playing 3 copies of Plusle, along with 4 Transceiver, I did think that the off chance of prizing that single copy of Mentor was worth the risk because of the Plusle in the deck. So 1 Holen Scientist, 1 Holen Adventure, both standard. I can see an argument for playing a Holen Last, and I might actually be getting ahead of myself. Last might not have been legal. No, Last was legal in 2006, but I can see an argument for playing Holen Last. I just opted not to in the deck. I really haven't had problems drawing into energy. So 4 copies of Rockets Admin. In 2006, this wasn't very popular. I'm not going to say a lot of decks just played 4 straight copies of Rockets Admin. It's just something that I've kind of gotten in the habit of doing, playing a lot of RS to PK. And it combos really well with the POW hand extension and then the Plusle minimum combo in the deck, as well as just the Dustox EX in general. If our opponent does go up a couple of quick prizes, we want to Rockets Admin them to lower hand size and really, really stop them from trying to find any sort of answers to that Dustox. Once again, also, we play that Lunatone Solrock combo, so it's not exactly like our opponent's going to be able to quick search or Porygon to back out of that lower hand size. 4 copies of Cursed Stone plays really well in the deck. The only thing I do want to note is the Cascoon does have that Pokepower Emerge. Unfortunately, the Ruby Sapphire Cascoon rotated, so we weren't able to get that into the deck. While Emerge is very strong, it is something that we do need to be aware of, that we do play it. It does have a power, and it's going to interact with our Cursed Stone in a way that we don't want it to. So just be conscientious of that, but ideally we're going through we're evolving through that Cascoon relatively early and quickly in the early game, so it's not something we worry about too much. 3 copies Professor Elm's Training Method, get that Cascoon, gets that Dustox, Holen's Electrode. Unfortunately, I would love to play Celios in here, but Training Method is just it's going to be essential for the deck just because of we need the ability to grab that Dustox EX, especially if we're going that rare candy route where we just want to skip that Cascoon altogether. So unfortunately 3 Elms is going to be mandatory. When we play 3 copies of rare candy, this gets us that very quick and early Dustox. We can just skip that Cascoon altogether. It just combos really well with the deck. 2 copies of Steven's Advice. 2006, very common to have large bench sizes, so that Steven's Advice is going to just always be a good draw supporter for us as well. 2 Pokemon Retriever. Works really well with the minimum plus little combo. Get our Dustox EX back. If our opponent gets a little tricky, wants to snipe a Lunatone Soul Rock, we're going to be able to get it out for that too. So, in a pinch too, I've also used it to grab a Voltorb or an Electrode just to get that energy back. Playing that second copy makes it a lot easier for me to burn the first one without too much thought. You know, if I just need an energy attachment for the turn, yep, just grab that Voltorb. Then if we ever do get in trouble, we can always min them to get a Retriever back as well. 2 POW hand extension, covered that a little bit. It's very common, especially if we're going the plus or minimum route where we'll fall behind. We want to POW something up with a large retreat cost and then just kind of sit back there and use that positive negative spark to start softening up our opponent or even taking some cheap prizes that way too. 2 copies of Warp Point. There's some little shenanigans in the format that I'm not a huge fan of. Roselia's Flick Poison, things like that are pretty common, can be pretty annoying. Not only is Warp Point just a great card in general, but you can also do it where if your opponent is doing some, you know, maybe some little stupid little POW tricks with you or something like that, you can Warp Point out minimum, sniff out that Warp Point, and then, you know, that POW lock is not going to work on you. It's overall, I think, a pretty strong addition to the deck. I could see going like 3 POW, 1 Warp Point, but the 2/2 is just played well enough for me. 1 copy of Scott. We're relying a lot on the Stadium War in this deck, so Scott, especially playing that minimum, playing 5 stadiums and the minimum, we've got 0 issues throwing down that first stadium. I'll just slap that Curse Stone right down. If you want to play a counter to it right away, that's fine. I'll just take an early sniff. I'll grab that Curse Stone back. We want to just start slapping those down, getting the damage on the board, force the opponent to constantly have to try to answer that, especially if that's something they've got to waste you know, a search supporter on or something like that. Just start slapping those down. 1 copy of Battle Frontier. Couple of different reasons for this. One, I actually am a fan of playing 5 stadiums in the deck. I think it's just really good in general. Sometimes we don't want to take the turn to sniff out, and just having that additional Battle Frontier is helpful. It's also incredibly useful in certain matchups. Meta Knight, for example, that 1 Battle Frontier can be really good. Dragtrode, that 1 Battle Frontier can be really good. And then, of course, if we are in a matchup where we prize the Lunatone or Soul Rock and a Pidgeot's giving us trouble, we do have that 1 Battle Frontier that's not only searchable, but we can also loop with the minimum. So all in all, the 1 Battle Frontier is just, it seems a little off, but playing that 5th stadium and then having access to Battle Frontier for certain matchups has been really good for me. Energy lineup, we just divide it right down the middle. 4 grass, 4 lightning, 4 multi-energy. The between 4 grass, 4 multi, that gives us 8 outs to grass energy. 4 lightning, 4 multi gives us 8 outs to the lightning energy. So it should be relatively easy to find what we need for either plus or minimum or the Dustox EX. The one thing I do want to note is just a reminder on that multi-energy that if you do have another special energy attached to it, it does count as colorless. So don't try to do anything too clever like attaching 2 multi, and remember that if you got a Holin's Voltorb or a Holin's Electrode on something, that multi is only going to give you colorless. So just a couple little reminders on that, but that's going to break down Dustox EX for 2006. It's a fun deck to play. I'm going to say I really do enjoy it. Tournament-wise, it's going to have its struggles. There's definitely going to be games that you're going to go into that you're just going to straight auto win. They're going to feel great, but you're also going to have some rough matchups against other decks as well. Even with all the counters we play, stuff like Dragtrode and Meta Knight can still give you a lot of trouble. And on top of that, I think one of the best decks in 2006 is definitely going to be Powtar, and that's also going to be probably the deck's worst matchup. LBS, I think, is actually pretty good for the deck. The one thing I've kind of struggled to find a good answer to is going to be that Latias Star. It's just really hard, I guess, to kind of find a good answer to that in the deck. You're going to have to just make sure you got a Dustox EX ready that can go up and use Cutting Wind on that to get damage on it or knock it out. So other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have not, please like and subscribe to the channel. It's been awesome I think I've been at this for right around, I think, somewhere 5 or 6 months now, and it's been awesome to see the channel grow. It's been great to see all the positive feedback. If you have not subscribed already, please consider doing so if you like this content, you want to see more like it in the future. And of course, like the video, please, for the YouTube algorithm. But this wraps up Dustox EX, and I hope to see you in the next video.